Sorry. There we go.
All right. Yep. And then, yeah, so this one is Sephora. So basically, these are all instances of brand recognition within the retail setting. So it's an example of how retailers can, how brand identity can seamlessly be integrated into the retail environment. So you just looking at that image, you're able to identify the brand. So and it's recalling experiences that you've had within the shop, whether it be like your own personal experience or something memorable that happened. It's helping you make that personal connection. So when brands are really intentional about their store design or their retail design, it's again a prime example of how that impacts you as a shopper and the overall customer experience. So it's really effective when it comes to kind of retail design. Sorry, I can't even say it. When it comes to retail design, the impact you have on your customers is really important, and how you kind of integrate the brand identity in the space, it really does leave an impression. So that was just an example of what larger retailers are doing. So basically in this presentation, I'll just dive into the essence of what retail design is. It's alignment with brand identity, how small businesses or business owners can implement effective retail design strategies for their brick and mortar shops. And then we'll just kind of go through some businesses that I've worked on. And then we'll have some Q&A, and I'll share some resources with you. So really quickly, I'm Nikisha. I'm the founder and principal designer at NOLA Designs. Our mission is to help small female-owned businesses elevate their brick and mortar shops. And then the vision for this business is really to be the go-to boutique retail design agency. So really, retail design is interior design and brand identity coming together in one space. So I want to break that down a little further for you. So when we look at brand identity, I know we've had many seminars here with Meredith on branding, but really just to really quickly recap, we know it's a mix of the characteristics of a brand, the personality, the appearance, the behaviors, what the visual identity is. We look at the values, the voice, and the style and tone of the brand. So that really kind of brings the brand together and makes it a cohesive kind of entity to connect with the customer you're targeting. So as we know, it transcends just having a logo. So retail design, of course, it's, as I mentioned, it's a branch of interior design. So we know interior design as really it's the art of and science of enhancing an interior space to achieve a more aesthetically healthier, pleasing environment for people using the space. And we typically know interior design to be associated with residential or kind of home renovation. And so overall, when it comes to designing a retail space, we can use the same process and principles, but when it comes to retail, we're not just looking at aesthetics, we're looking at the whole, of course, brand identity and how commerce kind of integrates into that whole design process. So we're looking at the products you sell, obviously the service quality, how you craft a captivating in-store atmosphere for your customer, and making sure that the shopping experience is enjoyable and seamless and memorable to your customers. So the overall goal is to create an ambience that really, an atmosphere of the space that really embodies the brand. So it's like a cohesive experience, and customers can have that connection and that memorable experience and have a strong kind of positive association with the store they're shopping in. So elements of a physical store environment, really, again, retail design encompasses the physical store environment. So everything within the store has a purpose, and it's adding to that overall shopping experience. And all of those elements have to be on brand to kind of make it all work together. So these elements include your storefront, your store layout, your fixtures, your finishes and materials, the signage you use, your visual merchandising, your lighting, and then your decor. And how you brand these will help you stand out from your competition as well. So starting with your store layout. So the store layout really dictates how the space is going to be used. It's influencing how customers flow through the space so that the store kind of is a reflection of how you want customers to interact with your brand, right? So a good example of this is if your brand values are to foster community, right? Then you would create a layout that allows for that communal gathering or for those kind of communal interactions within the space so that customers kind of feel that connection to your values. Another example would be if you had an eco-conscious brand, you may incorporate more open spaces. You may incorporate more natural materials to your space so that it gives a feeling of sustainability and kind of that natural kind of feeling to the space. So again, it's really about allowing your customers to feel that connection and really kind of have that discoverability as they're moving through the space. Then there's your visual merchandising. So this is about the visual presentation of your products and how you create that visually pleasing kind of product display that connects with your customers and motivates them to make a purchase. So you want to look at using props that will support your brand's aesthetic, and you want to bring these props into your displays so that it really kind of creates that intrigue for your customers. So you also want to look at posters or signs that kind of have your brand's fonts, the brand's colors, the brand's voice in the messaging of those posters, and the overall tone. So everything kind of has to be the same. So you're really trying to align kind of what you're presenting online into the in-store experience. So in this example here, this was a bridal shop we worked on. The props we use are like the mannequin heads, the necklace displays, the earring holders. So every prop we have used feels very bridal. It is that supporting kind of piece to help kind of make the jewelry or the accessories really just pop and feel a little bit more elevated. So next we want to look at your signage. So this is whether your signage is on the interior or exterior. You should have it in both places, but speaking specifically to the exterior, the signage is the first interaction a customer will have with your brick and mortar business. So it lets them know that they're in the right place. They found your business, and it helps them, again, identify with you. So the quality of your sign, obviously your sign will be a byproduct of your logo. So the application of that logo in a signage format, quality really matters here because it will speak to the perception of your brand and how elevated it is or not. So within your store, also bringing in the signage within your store also will help them know they're in the right place. So if a customer is walking off the street, they see your sign, or your sign is kind of off centered to like your door, having signage within your space really kind of reiterates where they are, and is also kind of creating that repetition of who your brand is to them when we have the signage within the space. So so really it influences that feeling of connection to your brand when they kind of walk in the space. And then your color palette. So really the palette you use within your store should be the palette that comes from your branding guidelines. So if you've worked with a branding designer, you'll have a palette, I think it's about 5 to 6 colors, standard colors, right? So when you're picking finishes and materials for your store, the mix should really be reflective of the palette. So, you know, when you're picking materials, you're looking at your paint, your flooring, your tiles, you're looking at wallpaper, you're looking at, you know, the different textures you're using, and you want to assess, does this align with my palette, right? So when we do this, it really, again, creates that cohesive and intentional kind of environment. And customers will see that. Customers will see that effort, and it will feel like, okay, you know, this is a place I want to shop. This is a place that um, connects to the types of environments I want to be in. So being really intentional just really elevates your store um, above kind of what your competitors could be doing. And again, to just speak to color palette, there is a psychological impact on customers when it comes to color. And that's, again, why it's so important to work with a branding designer, because they would have picked colors that align with the specific connection you're trying to make or feelings you're trying to make with your customers. So for instance, red would equal excitement, or green and gray equals calm, like gives a calm sort of environment, whereas blue, you know, equals trust. So again, if your brand is standing for calm and peaceful, let's say it's, I don't know, a wellness shop, right? And one of your brand's personalities is to be calm and peaceful, then of course your branding designer is going to bring in that sort of color palette into your branding, and then your space also needs to speak to that. So it creates that calm and relaxing environment. So it's important to consider the color palette in all sides of this. And then you've got your storefront. So this kind of connects to the signage piece. So again, your storefront is that first impression and that first interaction customers will have with your business. And again, you want to ensure it's a reflection of your brand, and this will make them decide whether they feel connected enough to your store, or that drawn to your store to the point where they want to walk through those doors, right? So again, this is an opportunity where you can introduce that color palette or those materials into the exterior of your store. Again, if you're allowed to. Oh, someone.
Okay.
But when you introduce those branded elements onto your storefront, again, it will speak to whether your brand is fun or sophisticated, and it will give you the opportunity to create that, you know, memorable first impression. So the characteristics of your brand should really be representative at your storefront, because this is where they're first kind of engaging with your business. So also your windows at the storefront should also kind of be included into this overall kind of strategy of branding your storefront. So basically, again, the displays you use in your window, the messaging, the posters you put in there should speak your brand's voice or messaging, and it really creates that connection with the customer. You got to speak that same language consistently. So again, that first impression is very crucial, and it will kind of help a customer decide whether they want to enter your store, connect with your world, and dictate, you know, if they're going to walk in and really kind of discover what you have to offer. And then there are your fixtures. So again, a fixture should align with the aesthetic and style. So you can kind of hear it gets repetitive, but it is true. It's really reinforcing every element to align with your brand, right? It should have that cohesiveness, visually appealing. It should be very visually appealing. I know a lot of, you know, small businesses, when they start out, they use secondhand fixtures from another brand. And so when you bring that into your brand's store, it kind of mixes the language a bit. So you want to be really mindful of the fixtures you are using. And even if you want to DIY it, you want to make sure it's DIY to a set standard or quality that aligns with your brand, because it's that perception really kind of sets you apart from your competition. So the right fixtures really will enhance the overall appearance and serve not just an aesthetic purpose, but also a functional purpose for you. So a good example of this is Sephora, as we saw in the examples in the beginning of the presentation. So Sephora, they obviously custom design their fixtures. And they do it in a way that will allow for the product and for easy product discovery and testing, because that's their brand. They want to always implement, they always want their customer experience to be that of discovery and testing. So their fixtures align with that. So they've got very open shelving. They've got, of course, interactive displays. They've got spots for all their testers on those displays. And they have bright light, of course, bright lighting to kind of help their customer really see the product. So they have lighting in their shelf so that it's really easy to read the products that are on display. So again, fixtures play an important role in the shopping experience. So you really want to make sure you're thoughtfully considering what you're kind of bringing into the space. Then you've got your lighting. So lighting is always a way to create a mood within an environment. And again, the light fixtures themselves that you use can also align with kind of the aesthetic of your brand, because, you know, when we use kind of decorative lighting, it really helps kind of dress the space as well. But in terms of setting the mood and the ambience, lighting is really key here. So again, what is the personality of your brand? Is it exciting? Is it an exciting kind of very active brand personality, or is it very calm and smoothing, right? So different lighting has different effects. So again, more dim lighting will create that mood. More bright lighting will kind of create that more excited feeling. So again, your brand's personality will dictate that sort of lighting application that you use. So again, another good example is Sephora. They use bright lighting so that customers can obviously test products, and it really activates the space and really gets them kind of excited, because I feel like I go to Sephora all the time and I get that feeling of I need to find something and want to shop for more. So they are really intentional about that type of lighting they use. Whereas if you've been to like a Restoration Hardware, it's very moody. It's a little calming. It's like a more calm experience than obviously shopping in a Sephora. And they're really trying to replicate that homey vibe in their stores. So that's why their lighting would basically reflect that. So again, you want to be intentional with your lighting. And then there's also functional aspects to lighting you want to use in your retail store. You will have to use task lighting and then feature lighting to really highlight your product in a way that makes it pop, but you have to find a balance of mixing the two so that they all work together. So again, just that consistency in your brand experience should, again, come across from all touch points, as I've covered, because again, this makes your store feel a little bit more uniform and, again, recognizable across. Like if you decided to expand, you've created a standard for your business so that it's consistent whether your customer decides to shop in store A or B. It feels the same, and if they're coming if they're an online shopper and they're coming from online to offline into your brick and mortar space, they should feel like they're shopping in the same store. That makes sense. So what you do online should also be reflected in your store and vice versa. So you should have that consistent experience, and that's usually called omni-channel. It's omni-channel kind of retail experience. So it creates a strong brand perception. Again, it creates that cohesive branding experience. It makes it easy to recognize who your store is. It creates a confident purchase with your customer, because they know that you have, because of the way you've presented your store, your business, and how the products are displayed, they can be confident in making purchases because they know you've got what they have. You're offering what they are looking for, just based on the presentation of everything and how easy it is to navigate your store. And again, because you're presenting your store in a certain way, it fosters that kind of emotional connection to your store and makes it more of like a destination versus a run-of-the-mill like if making you stand out from your other kind of, call it wellness stores or whatever industry you're in. So some small businesses that we've worked with, that NOLA Designs has worked with, I'll just kind of go through how we've brought some of their branding into their space. So this is a store called Holy Mackerel. They are a gift shop in Peggy's Cove, Nova Scotia, Canada. So this is a very brand new concept. They didn't exist before. So when they had their branding done, they really wanted it to be this fun, whimsical kind of gift shop that was not like any other kind of standard gift shop. They have a lot of souvenirs. Peggy's Cove is a touristy spot. And so they wanted it to, of course, be a very different kind of feeling. So what I did here really quickly is, of course, we have their logo, but we took elements from their logo and try to make the store feel fun as well and just kind of outside of the box. So we really applied their brand colors to the exterior and even kind of we did some custom chairs at the front. And then their door, again, had that pop of color. Inside, we really neutralized the space. We wanted it to feel like that fisherman's kind of shed kind of feel, so that we kind of had that kind of barn lighting, I guess, in the inside. And then we, again, neutralized the space with kind of making it all white, but then we kept the pop of fun orange color on the doors on the inside. And then with the space kind of being more of a neutral kind of white palette, it allowed the product to stand out because a lot of the product is from local kind of brands and artists. So we really wanted to celebrate that and not have the space take away from the curated pieces that they brought in there. So that's what we did with that store. Another business I worked with was the Wax Lounge. So again, they came to me wanting to revamp their retail and then kind of create a better flow because they felt like it was really off. And of course, when I went in, I was like, there was no sense of their branding in that space at all. So we kind of had to increase the scope a little bit with this so that it really felt like a finished space and that it was really reflective of who they are and the experience they wanted to create for their customers. So we, again, kind of really made it feel a lot more serene. So I brought in some drapery to make it feel lighter. Of course, we have the greens in there. We really changed out the displays that they use, and I brought in some softer woods. We painted the brick walls. We got rid of some of the existing light fixtures in there, and really, again, just really streamlined the merchandising here, so it felt like it was easier for the customer to see what was being presented to them, and we just really cleaned it up. Same space, just different angle. So again, this is really kind of just speaking to how we kind of tweaked the flow, right? So we looked at how is the customer coming into the space? How did you want them to feel? You want what are their resting spaces? So once they came in, we wanted them to flow right into their waiting area, right? And there was a treatment like little section that she wanted to kind of keep in the front there. And you can see from the before and after, like things kind of felt disjointed and didn't really flow. And it was just a really bad use of the space. And so really tweaking that to make it feel better. And then kind of bringing in one of her prominent brand colors as that feature wall to really create that calm feeling in the space. So it really totally feels different from what it was before. And then lastly, like another kind of popular project I've worked on is Suitables. They are a jewelry brand. So they had a lot of great imagery on their website. And when I went to their original store, it's like we didn't feel any of that kind of branding or that any of the feeling they had on their website in their store. So when they moved to their new space, I really want to pull in obviously their brand colors, but really bring in some of that brand imagery through the posters. And a lot of their imagery was like on the beach, and it had that beachy vibe. And so again, the flooring we chose was a lot more warmer. We brought in more kind of wood tones into the displays. Um, and yeah, we just really made it feel like their brands. There was that continuity between that online space and the offline space. And then even just kind of in the experience in itself with their clothing, again, how it was being displayed before, it felt very uninspired, and it didn't really kind of present the clothing options in the best light. So we really tweaked how we were presenting the apparel section, and then we implemented what we call a try bar. So basically, people were coming in wanting to try on the jewelry pieces, but there wasn't really a dedicated space. It got crowded. So we're like, let's give them a designated space to really help kind of elevate that experience and make it feel special and different. And so that's kind of how we brought that in so that they could really enjoy shopping in the store. So it's again kind of really trying to in and make it feel like a better shopping experience for the customer. So as a small business owner, here are some practical steps for you. I've said it before, but we'll just kind of really recap. So you want to really redefine or reevaluate your brand identity, because that is the foundation of how all of this is going to come together. Without a brand identity, you can't really create a branded retail experience. And as you know, it goes beyond just having a logo. It really encompasses the full personality of your brand. And once you have that down, you want to then assess your store interior and exterior, and you want to review your all the elements that we talked about. You want to look at your lighting, your decor, your furniture, your color, the overall atmosphere. Is it reflecting the personality of your brand? So assess the functionality, assess the layout. What is it fostering for your customers? You want to look at that. Then you want to look at your signage. Is it really eye-catching? Are you investing in quality signage for your store? Is it being effective? Is it put in an effective position on the exterior? Is it put in an effective position in on the interior of your store? Is your business name clear enough? Is your tagline there so a customer can understand exactly what your offerings are, very high level? Is it also in proper brand colors that kind of work together? Is there an aesthetic there that would really connect with the customer that you're trying to target? And another thing that I do want to quickly mention here is to educate your staff. If you already have an existing retail shop, are your employees educated on what your brand values are? Because it's important for them to also create that consistent customer interaction. So they should be basically embodying that brand personality and values when they're interacting with your customers. And so it's important to reinforce that to them. And then also explore branded uniforms. Having your staff in those in uniforms that kind of again speak to who your brand is and what you represent. I think it will also help customers easily identify who can help them and who are the right people in the store to cater to what they're looking for. And then again, your visual merchandising, assess your product placement and the presentation techniques you are using. How effective is it? Are you telling a story with your displays? Are you using props that reflect your brand's identity? Again, review your window displays. I think this also goes beyond just your seasonal changes for your window displays. You want to create the core themes of who your brand is in those windows. And then you want to use again, props, found objects, or any decor items to bring in that personality and aesthetic of your brand. Whoops, one more. And then again, lastly, the the color scheme. Again, making sure it aligns with your brand's palette, ensuring that you're using paint, textures, finishes, any other materials to that speak to the tone and the personality of your brand. So that pretty much wraps up the presentation. Are there any questions about what I've shared?
Hi, Nikisha. I don't. Oh, is that someone else? Oh. I don't have a question per se, but I just wanted to. One thing that stood out in your presentation is just how much of an art it is of what it is you do. And I think it's really evident the value you bring to a business owner and the impact it has on sales. Like I'm walking away saying, if people have brick and mortar, they have to hire Nikisha. So
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I guess it's more of a kudos to you, but
Thank you.
yeah, I think
I definitely try.
Yeah, it's powerful, right? So
it is, and I definitely, I think it's so new. This concept of having a retail designer is so new to small businesses. When I started my business, a lot of people didn't understand the value of working with a retail designer, and I felt like it's my mission to preach the value that branding a space brings, because it really does set you apart from. It just makes you stand out in general. Forget your competition. It makes your business feel more elevated, right? And I noticed that was kind of really lacking in the small business realm, where it was just, we've got a store, let's just make do with what we have, get it set up and sell. But unfortunately, I think that does a lot of small businesses a disservice. And yeah, investing in kind of proper kind of design up front, it just kind of sets the tone going forward. It's almost just like setting up a website, right? Having it done right from the beginning really does, it just makes kind of the selling a little bit easier, I think. And it just, again, just sets the tone.
Totally. Sarah has her hand up, but I'll make sure I share what I shared with you before.
Yes, please. Yes.
Sarah, you're up.
Hey, Nikisha. I don't know if this question is going to come out clear or not, but I wrote it down, so I'm going to try.
Okay.
Okay. So I create content for small businesses, and I'm just wondering, like, how can social media best support and or complement retail design outside of incorporating brand colors and messaging and just like creating, like you mentioned, continuity with the brick and mortar and the social platform, maybe outside of like store tours or having content in the space and all that. Okay, you hear me. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I totally hear you. I always speak to how like retail design can support like their social efforts. We look at how social media is today. People, of course, are recording the stores they're going to, the places they're going to that they love, that they feel connected to, that is like looks cool, right? Everyone wants to share a cool space they've been in, right? And so when you brand a store, that's one free piece of marketing, right? Like if your store looks good and it's something you're, a new customer who's probably very social media savvy feels really strongly about, they are going to record that. And that's why I know we're kind of phasing out of the having an Instagram wall era, but that was really huge for a lot of small businesses. We still have that, but I feel like now it's more of a holistic kind of store experience where it's not just the wall that people want to photograph. I'm on TikTok and people are doing full walkthroughs of restaurants or stores or whatever they've been in, right? And so when you have a space that's intentional and well designed, it really essentially becomes free marketing for you eventually. Once you start bringing in that traffic, people are going to want to share it. And that investment you make into design, it's almost like a marketing spend, quite honestly, because it really does help elevate you. And it eventually will become free promotion. And it's just kind of, it's like the gift that keeps on giving. It just keeps kind of paying itself off over like in the long run. Hopefully
Right.
that answers the question,
Yeah,
but yes.
no, that's awesome. Thank you.
Nikisha, you described it earlier in your presentation as a destination. And I was like, yes, those are the
Yeah.
stores that stand out where it's like, I'm going to get my coffee. I'm going to, and
Yeah.
it's an experience versus just, oh, I have to go to Old Navy and pick up, whatever.
Yeah. And there's stores like I've passed driving, like I've driven by some stores and it's like, you can tell when it's like done intentionally. And I'm like, I need to go back to that store. And it's been like flagged in my mind. Like I may not be back in, the east side of Toronto for like another few months, but I know when I'm going back to Toronto, I want to see that store. And that again, like look at all the I've been into like a lot of little small towns where there's a lot of small shops. Some great, some not so good, right? And the great ones are the ones that I want to go to and walk in and take pictures and explore, right? And it just it really, again, really just sets that small business apart. And I feel like small businesses need it the most, right? They need that traffic the most. And so for me, I guess my challenge as a retail designer is to really share where the ROI is when they invest in retail design. And just really being intentional about how their space presents itself, because it really just is what will bring in the traffic, quite honestly.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions? I'll share that story in a sec.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So, context, I'm a bakery. I don't have a storefront, so I go to markets.
Okay.
And the nature of my products, generally speaking, are very meltable. So like at winter markets, when I'm inside, I generally have as much as I can on the table, and that draws a good crowd. In the summer, I can't do that. So I did like what I call like a picture menu. So I just have a picture of all my products, just printed off on a thing. That way people can still see it without me having to leave them out in the sun.
Yeah.
But I find doing it that way, my table is also pretty empty, because also too, like on the habit of like bringing like a dummy cake and like other props to fill up my table. But again, can't really do that in the summer.
Right.
So I'm trying to figure out like what can I do to obviously bring more people to my table, because I found just having like the picture frame of like my menu, and I also have like a little bio of myself, wasn't enough for people to like actually stop and actually read what I have.
Right. I think that would come into, I think what could work really well for you is, have you ever done like branded photo shoots for your cakes where it's like really styled? You've got, maybe you take it to a studio and you get professional photography done of it in a setting. Could you always utilize those photos in your displays to really speak to kind of the beauty of your cakes? You can also look at, maybe doing an info board of like what, sets your cakes apart from others. That could be part of your display setup. And it's, again, really kind of curating it. So like maybe you do have a faux cake on display, and then maybe you've got the cupcakes, but you're gonna want to tell a story with everything you're using. So for example, let's say the market was, I don't know, a lavender summer market, right? You would display, maybe you have a lavender cake option, right? Or maybe it's not, maybe the cake is purple to go with the market, or whatever your branding is, right? But you want to make sure, let's say the cakes you're using speaks to, let's say, your brand colors. And then you, again, want to tell a story. You're telling a story that you offer cakes, you offer cupcakes, you offer cake pops, and then whatever props you use should support that. So if you're doing the cake pops, maybe you have party decor in there to say that you can buy these cake pops for your party, that will connect with the customer and say, okay, oh, I can buy those for a party. If your cakes are obviously you can get them for a wedding, right? Maybe you have wedding related props in and around that cake, right? So you really want to curate that display, and it takes some thought. Like it takes some time to plan it out. You can do a quick mock-up or sketch of how you want to display that. I think Pinterest could be your friend here, of how to really curate the story behind how they can like utilize the cakes that you sell. So that can help bring attention to your displays at markets.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
Sarah, anything else from you?
Hi, sorry. I think the only thing that I was thinking about when you were talking, Nikisha, was, and I think this is just an old approach, it's not really a question, but like when you're designing these retail stores, are you just leaving it to the customer to interpret the store as, like you said, a destination, or are you incentivizing customers to share on social media? Like, is there signage for it, or is that kind of an old, I know, like you said, like the Instagram wall or whatever is kind of old, but is there like a reminder for customers to do that or something, or
You
a
can.
hashtag? I know hashtags are kind of old, but
Absolutely. You can have very like, I would say discrete signs, but like maybe you can have a little sign on your display that says follow us or tag us on a display. I usually think or believe that like when a store has like a vignette that like is honestly vignettes are so inspiring that it's an instant kind of draw to take a picture. Um, and so it's like having moments in the store versus like a big Instagram wall that will inspire that kind of photo to be taken. Like
okay, right.
if it's curated, people are going to take photos. Like I really high level when I've gone to like expos, again, the booths that stand out to me are the ones that have kind of really thought and curated like little vignettes or little experiences versus
And are
those
those being changed? Like, you know how it's like, okay, if you take a photo here, it's the same as the next person, the next person. Like, are those being changed out like every couple months or
yeah,
something?
they could be. They could be, right? Yeah, I mean, they should be uh, changed out seasonally if they, to align with the seasons or the quarter of that, of whatever the business is doing. It should be probably changed out. And it doesn't have to be drastic. It can be like, let's swap out, you know, the stems in this vase for like, branches for, for winter, right? So it really is up to like the application and like where it's sitting in the store, where it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, thank you.
All right.
So I have to share this quick story.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
As Nikisha and I were getting ready for the presentation, she has the presentation up on the computer, and I was like, I don't recognize, Nikisha and I have worked together quite a few times, so I know her work. And I was like, I don't recognize this project. And there's like her kind of title to it, so I couldn't quite see it. And she's like, oh, it's a gift shop I did in Peggy's Cove. And I was like, having been there just in May, I was like, which one? And she says, Holy Mackerel. And so here's the story. My family and I are driving into Peggy's Cove, and it's very sparse with what's kind of out there. It's just a lot of rock. And then all of a sudden there's a couple little shops and stuff. And it's on the left-hand side as you're driving in. And I said, I want to go in that shop simply because it even made my reel. I pulled it up as you were talking.
I got to see it. You got to send it to me.
Yeah, I'll tag you. It's in my personal Instagram. I've obviously lost it now because I wasn't holding my thumb down.
Yeah. Okay.
But I took a picture because I think people of our age, sometimes it's just, hey, I'm going to create a reel or like a carousel of photos that encompass what the vibe was where I was at or my day, right? And so it fully was like an Instagrammable, in my opinion, this cute shop. And so I imagine if other people are looking at reels, just like I do, I'm like, I want this experience. I want to feel these vibes. And so it was hilarious because I was like, I was in that shop, simply just the design of it and the brand application made me want to go in. Now, right. I didn't buy anything because we didn't have room in our luggage, but like it so much so that they got free advertising from me because I put it in my reel. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it truly is like a testament to what it is you do. Yeah. The other store, which isn't your work, but I have to mention it, is do you know Grit and Grace in Sauble Beach?
Yeah.
they have like the Jenga outside, the pink Muskoka chairs, swings. It's just like it gets photographed, 15 times a day, all free advertising because of, what it is that they've done. So
yeah.
I just think it's such a cool opportunity. I'm like, everyone do this.
Yeah, and it should be intentional, right?
Yes, totally.
So it matters. It does make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, but
It does.
okay, so just really quickly to wrap up, some resources. So again, if you need help taking action, we have resources. So first, I've got a store design style quiz. So that's really geared around, the questions are geared around branding, who your brand is, and then at the end, you'll figure out kind of what kind of design style your store should be based on your brand's personality. So is it, minimalist? Is it coastal? Is it traditional? You can take the quiz multiple times if you want, if you're not confident with the results. And if you take it multiple times, then you have like at least, three different types of styles you can work with for your store design. So there's that, again, free. Then I've got our retail design checklist, and it's basically for small business owners who already have a store where they can just download this checklist and really kind of go item by item, reviewing if they have, certain things or what needs to be tweaked. It's just really a checklist for you to kind of help you evaluate your store. And then I've got an investment guide to help you understand the real cost of building out a retail store. So it looks at, a breakdown of fixture costs. So there's a low, medium, high cost, and then timelines around just everything, like, the build time, how long it will take to get a fixture built or designed. And so this gives you timelines and costs. And then of course I've got my blog, the NOLA blog, with lots of tips and blog posts on there that are helpful. So thank you for everyone for listening to my presentation. You can connect with me on my website. You can follow me on Pinterest, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And if you are kind of interested in working with myself, you can send an inquiry to info@noladesigns.ca. That's it. Thank you.
I'll send out the replay and include your information as well, Nikisha. So
sounds good.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining, everyone. And I'll have this sent out in the next hour, I would say. Okay.
No worries.
Okay. Good stuff. Thanks, Nikisha. Bye, everyone.
All right. Okay. Bye.